Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye Nashtoprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 27, Text 26. Evam vidita-tattvasya prakrtir mayi manasam yuñjato napakuruta atmaramasya karhicit. Evam vidita-tattvasya prakrtir mayi manasam yuñjato napakuruta atmaramasya karhicit. Evam vidita-tattvasya prakritir mayi manasam yuñjato napakuruta atmaramasya karhicit.
evam vidita-tattvasya prakrtir mayi manasam yuñjato napakuruta atmaramasya karhicit.
evam vidita-tattvasya prakrtir mayi manasam yuñjato napakuruta atmaramasya karhicit.
evam vidita-tattvasya prakrtir mayi manasam yuñjato napakuruta atmaramasya karhicit.
Mataji's.
evam vidita-tattvasya prakrtir mayi manasam yuñjato napakuruta atmaramasya karhicit. evam vidita-tattvasya prakrtir mayi manasam yuñjato napakuruta atmaramasya karhicit.
Evam thus vidita-tattvasya, to one who knows the absolute truth, prakriti material nature, mayi on me, manasam the mind, yuñjatah fixing, na not, apakurute can do harm, atmaramasya to one who rejoices in the self, karhicit at any time. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The influence of material nature cannot harm an enlightened soul, even though he engages in material activities, because he knows the truth of the Absolute and his mind is fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Please repeat. The influence of material nature cannot harm an enlightened soul, even though he engages in material activities, because he knows the truth of the Absolute, and his mind is fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Kapila says that mayi manasam, a devotee whose mind is always fixed upon the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called atmaram or vidita-tattvasya. Atmarama means one who rejoices in the self, or one who enjoys in the spiritual atmosphere. Atma in the material sense means the body or the mind, but when referring to one whose mind is fixed on the soul, on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Atmaram means one who is fixed in the spiritual activities in relation with the Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul is the personality of Godhead, and the individual soul is the living entity. When they engage in reciprocation of service and benediction, the living entity is said to be in the Atmaram position. The Atmaram position can be attained by one who knows the truth as it is. The truth is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the enjoyer, and that living entities are meant for his meant for his service and enjoyment. One who knows this truth and who tries to engage in resources in the service of the Lord escapes all material reaction and influences of the modes of material nature. The example may be cited in this connection. Just as a materialist engages in constructing a big skyscraper, a devotee engages in constructing a big temple of Vishnu. Superficially, the skyscraper constructor and temple constructor are on the same level, for both are collecting wood, stone, iron, and other building materials. But the person who constructs a skyscraper is a materialist, and the person who constructs a temple of Vishnu is Atmaram. The materialist tries to satisfy himself in relation to the body by constructing a skyscraper, but the devotee tries to satisfy the Super Soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by constructing the temple. Although both are engaged in the association of material activities, the devotee is liberated and the materialist is conditioned. This is because the devotee who is constructing a temple has fixed his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the non-devotee who is constructing a skyscraper has his mind fixed on sense gratification. If while performing any activity, even in material existence, one's mind is fixed upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one will not be entangled or conditioned. The worker in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is always independent of the influence of material nature. Evam vidita-tattvasya prakrtir mayi manasam yuñjato napakuruta atmaramasya karhicit. The influence of material nature cannot harm an enlightened soul, even though he engages in material activities, because he knows the truth of the Absolute and his mind is fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Kapil Dev is instructing his mother on the subject matter of understanding the material nature. What was Devahuti's question to Kapil Dev? Yes,
How to
Shampir.
get out of this material attachment.
Very good. That how can, or question actually was, can a living entity ever become free from the entanglement or bewildering influence of the material nature? And in relation to that, Kapil Dev is giving the answer. What is the basic answer to that question? Yes or no? Yes. And what is the secret? The secret is devotional service. Now, in this point, he is actually telling that a person who is absorbed in Krishna consciousness, what is the definition of a person a person who is transcendental to the material nature? Atmaram is one, and the other one? Mayi manasa. Mayi manasa. Mayi means unto me. Manasa means mind. So whose mind is fixed on me. So a person whose mind is fixed on Krishna, he is Atmaram. Atmaram, Atma, Rama is a sandhi of these two words. Atma, Arama. Atma means the soul. And Ramo or Aramo means pleasure, enjoy. So, one who derives his enjoyment from the soul is an Atmaram. Generally, what people do, where do they try to enjoy from? How do they try to enjoy? Through the senses, through the body they want to enjoy. Generally, people try to like those who are situated in the material nature, what is their way of enjoying? Their way of enjoying is sense gratification. Sense gratification. Like they try to derive their enjoyment by gratifying their senses. Senses want something. The pleasing experiences to the senses are the source of enjoyment to those people. Like, for example, they with the eyes, they want to see some beautiful or exciting things. What is the enjoyment of the eyes? Watching TVs. The eyes are enjoying, seeing nice objects. Ultimately, it goes back to the mind. And then, tongue wants to eat relishable food stuff. Skin wants to touch some pleasing objects. Actually, it is the material enjoyment ultimately culminates into the point of skin, which is sex life. The ears want to hear sweet songs, sweet music. So these are all sense gratification. This is how a living entity wants to enjoy in the material nature. That means they want to enjoy on the platform of the body, on the bodily platform, through sense gratification. But what does an Atmaram do? He doesn't derive his enjoyment through his body or senses. He derives his joy from his soul. What does the soul want? Does the soul want sense gratification? No. Soul wants service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the soul's craving, that's the soul's desire. So those who are deriving their joy from the Atma, from the soul, or the spiritual platform, they are known as Atmaram. And who are they? Who are the Atmarams? How do they become Atmaram? Mayi manasa, being their mind, having their minds fixed on the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gave the same instruction. What is Krishna's instruction? I heard some whisper. Yes? Manmana bhava mad bhakta. Manmana bhava. Manmana bhava and mayi manasa is the same principle. Mind fixed in me. Krishna is telling that fix your mind in me. That is manmana bhava. And when the mind is fixed, Kapil Dev here is saying mayi manasa, whose mind has been fixed in me. So when one becomes manmana bhava or mayi manasa, then what happens? Then he does it try to derive his joy from senses? No, then he derives his joy from his soul. Now the question is that how does one derive his joy from the soul? One derives the joy from the soul through his spiritual senses. Just as our body has our senses, the soul also has senses. The real senses are spiritual. This is projection. The soul can see. Soul means what? Soul also has a body. It is not that soul is without a body. Impersonalists think that the soul is without body. Soul is Brahman. And Krishna also is Brahman. So they don't have any concept of body. But a devotee who is even in a higher platform than the Brahmavadis, they have the understanding that the soul has a body and the Supreme Soul, Krishna, also has a body. It is not that we don't have body. And if we have a body, we have senses also. That body has eyes, the body has ears, the nose, the tongue, and touch. And how do they derive their joy? By being in a loving exchange with Krishna. Through their loving exchange with Krishna. In the material platform, people try to enjoy from their body, and in the spiritual platform, they try to derive their enjoyment through the spiritual body. Now, how does the spiritual body develop? Where is the spiritual body? Now, because of our conditioning, our spiritual body has been lost. Lost means it has shrank into a minute atomic particle, spiritual particle. Why? Because we stopped to serve Krishna. So the spiritual body is meant to serve Krishna. So if we stop serving Krishna, then what's the use of the spiritual body? Therefore we lose the spiritual body. Now how do we revive the spiritual body? By being engaged in service to Krishna. We serve Krishna. And as we serve Krishna, we develop our spiritual body. In order to serve, you need hands. Right? Then the spiritual hand appears. The hand of the spiritual body appears. Legs of the spiritual body appear. In this way, when one becomes engaged in Krishna's service, his spiritual body begins to manifest. And when in that spiritual body, one engages in the service to Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita is describing that this pure devotee is aprakrita dehe kare Krishna Shiva. In his transcendental body, the devotees become engaged in the service to Krishna. Now with this now our consciousness has become entangled in the material body. Therefore, now, what is this body for? This body has two purposes. This body tries to enjoy matter and receives pain as a result of that. This body is an instrument to receive pain. That is the purpose of this body. But being illusioned, what these living entities are trying to do, they're trying to use this body to enjoy. They're trying to use it for enjoyment, but what they're getting? They get suffering. A very simple consideration is, take any part of your body and see in how many ways you can inflict pain on that body. In how many ways you can inflict pain on this body. Murari, can you inflict some pain in this body? Take your little finger. How many ways you can inflict pain?
You can twist it, you can burn it.
Okay, Murari thought burn it. What will you get when you burn it?
Pain.
Pain. Okay. And Nitai Chandra? Cut it with a knife. What will you get? Nanda Braja, you made some... Hammering it. Wow. So, in so many ways, you can inflict pain on your little finger. Now, in how many ways you can give pleasure to your little finger? Rohini Nandan? बोलो कितनी कैसे प्लेजर दे सकते हो हाँ मालिश करके with much difficulty he thought of one way to give pleasure to children. And now you consider, if a proposal is given, somebody will massage your finger and somebody with a knife will start cutting the finger. Will you accept that proposal? So what does it mean? In so many ways you can give pain to your little finger, but practically in no way you can give pleasure to your little finger. Now I selected just, offhand I just selected little finger. You can take any part of your body. And this principle will hold good. So what does it mean then? What is the conclusion? The conclusion is that this body is a wonderful instrument to receive pain. But with this body, what people are trying to do in this material nature? They are simply trying to enjoy. Now you realize why it's an illusion to try to enjoy through the body. But real enjoyment is possible. Real enjoyment is being, that is the point in being atmaram. Trying to enjoy through the spiritual body, not through this material body. The material body is just meant for suffering, to receive pain. So how to enjoy in the spiritual sense? Being engaging our senses in the service of Krishna. That engaging our senses, another word name for the senses is, who remembers? Rishikesh. I'm sorry, not Rishikesh, Rishika. Rishika. Rishikena. Rishikena means by the senses. Rishikesha, the Lord of the senses. Sevanam, service. So when the senses are engaged in serving the Lord of the senses, who is the Lord of the senses? Krishna. When the Lord of the senses is served through the senses, then one derives the real enjoyment. Due to conditioning, we are thinking that we are going to enjoy through our body by exploiting the objects of the senses. That is the illusion. By exploiting the objects of the senses and gratifying the senses, we'll never be able to get sense gratification or pleasure that we are hankering for. The real enjoyment is in Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam. With your senses, you rather engage your senses in serving the Lord of the senses, Krishna. Now, in this verse, Kapil Dev is making one point, very important point, that Atmaramas, those who are actually engaged in serving Krishna and those who don't have anything to do with this material nature, those who are not interested in enjoying or exploiting the material nature, they also become engaged in materialistic activities. But that is not really materialistic activity. That is apparently material activities. People may think, well, they are also building a house. It's a material activities. They are also cooking food. They are also eating. They are also doing so many activities. Why the sadhus are doing all these things? Sometimes people think, why the sadhus? Sadhus should live in the forest. What the sadhus are doing in Ujjain city? Or Ujjain may be acceptable because it is one of the holy places. But what are they doing in Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, London, New York? What they're doing in all those places? Why they should live in the Himalayas? Now this is the higher understanding. It's good, those who are in Himalayas, those who are, what they're doing, they're trying to detach themselves from material nature, from their conditioned stage. They're trying to uncondition their conditioned stage. But beyond that unconditioning the conditioned stage is the transcendental activity of devotional service. So that activity is transcendental. Although apparently it may appear to be alike, just as the opposites sometimes appear to be alike. Like the sunrise and sunset. Doesn't it look alike? But one is when the sun is appearing and the other sun is disappearing. Similarly, spiritual activities sometimes may appear to be like mundane activities, material activities. As Prabhupada is giving the example of a devotee is building a temple and a materialist building a skyscraper. Devotees are going and collecting bricks, collecting cements, collecting iron, steel, collecting wood, hiring the workers. And the materialist is also doing the same thing. Collecting wood, collecting steel, collecting cement, hiring the laborers, engaging the laborers. But the difference is one is doing it for his sense gratification and the other is doing it for Krishna's pleasure. So ultimate consideration is what is determining whether it's a material or spiritual. That's why Prabhupada gives an example, the thin line between material and spiritual. What is the difference between material and spiritual?
Center is Krishna.
Yes. In material, center is ourselves, and in spiritual, it's Krishna who is the center. So that is the difference. Arjuna is fighting the battle, Duryodhana is fighting the battle. For Duryodhana, it is a material activity. For Arjuna, it is a spiritual activity. Why? Because Arjuna is fighting for Krishna. That has been very wonderfully explained in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna didn't want to fight, but Krishna forced him to fight. That means Arjuna is fighting for Krishna. Arjuna is not fighting for himself. So similarly, you can also direct your activities either towards the material side or towards the spiritual side. And that is what Kapil Dev is instructing his mother. That ultimately the atmaramas, those who are deriving their joy from their spirit soul, from the spiritual identity, in the spiritual activity, they are atmaramas. Why the atmaramas are becoming engaged in this kind of activities? Because these activities are apparently sense gratifying activities. Atmaramas do not have any tendency to enjoy with their senses, gratifying their senses. So why the Atmarams are engaged in these material activities? The same point actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He quoted this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Atmaramasya munayo nirgrantho purukrame kurvanti ahaituking bhaktim ittham bhuta jatha hari. He made that question that okay, you are saying that liberation is the ultimate goal, but the ultimate consideration of liberation is to achieve the state of Atmaram. So liberated souls, nirgrantha, those who are free from material bondage, why they are engaged in serving the Lord? The people, those who are already transcendental to the material nature, then why are they engaged in these apparently material activities? That is the question that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu put forward to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was an impersonalist at the beginning. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya got stuck. Yeah, that's true. Why does the Atmarams get engaged in devotional service? So that means devotional service is beyond Atmaram platform. When the Atmarams are becoming engaged, that means this activity is superior to just meditating upon the Lord in the heart. So in this way, time and time again in the scriptures, the supremacy of the devotional service has been established. Devotional service is the ultimate activity for the soul. Just getting freed from material bondage is not the goal of life. Nirgrantha. Nirgrantha means free from material bondage. Granthi means a knot. Vidyate hridaya granthi. Granthi. Granthi, knot in the heart. Nirgrantha means one whose all these knots had been cut asunder. And those people, those who are liberated from material bondage, engaged in devotional service, that establishes that devotional service is superior to the platform of liberation. Because the liberated souls become engaged in devotional service. So devotional service is the ultimate occupation of a living entity. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any question or comment?
I had one from yesterday's lecture. You explained about seriousness and frivolousness. The lack of seriousness, that is frivolousness, is actually the root of sex desire. So now my question is seriousness. How does it manifest? Both internally as well as externally. How does seriousness, is explained, is expressed to the body, to the mind, as well as to the words?
Yeah, that seriousness comes from developing attachment to Krishna. Because when you become attached to Krishna, then you automatically become detached from frivolous activities. No other activity makes any sense to you. That is the objective of seriousness. You automatically become serious. Or in simple words, you can say, someone is very hungry. And then when he gets the food, what is his state of mind at that time? He is completely absorbed in the food. Does he have any time to think of some film song? Or any other frivolous activity? No. So that is the real basis of seriousness. Like one of the qualities of a devotee is grave. You see, seriousness and graveness is synonymous. Why does he become grave? Because he's so absorbed in what he is doing that he doesn't have any time for anything else.
In this verse, although this material body exists, material, this is spiritual, but not they are serving to Krishna, that's why it is called non-devotee. They are devotee, but they are non-devotee. So,
They're devotee, but they're not devotee.
because they are not using for Krishna.
Huh?
Because they are not using for Krishna.
Then how can they be devotee? Either a devotee or not devotee. Okay, go ahead. Now, what's your question?
So my question is, they are not using, that's why they are scriptures say non-devotee.
Right. Yes. They are materialist. Materialist as what is the definition of materialist? A person who does things for himself, for his own pleasure. But who is a devotee? One who is engaged in serving Krishna.
Well, a gross materialistic person, he is completely attached to sense gratification. Whereas a pure devotee of the Lord is completely attached to Krishna. Now, in the middle, those who are in the middle, how far are they eligible to do this? Because yuñjato, to engage the material nature in the service of Krishna, is it only the right of the completely liberated souls? And what about those who are still attached and trying to become devotional? Can they do that?
You see, the consideration of becoming a devotee is the mercy of a devotee, the guidance of a devotee. It's only by coming in contact with a devotee one becomes a devotee, because he teaches him how to become engaged in serving Krishna. Otherwise, the goal of life is just spiritual objective is just to achieve liberation. That's why I find that those who are pursuing spiritual life, they're aspiring for liberation. But only when one comes in contact with a devotee, he transcends that stage and becomes engaged in devotional service. Yes.
The personalists say that the soul has no form, and we know that the soul has form. So is there a specific Shastric reference to this?
What's that?
The soul has form. Is there a specific Shastric reference?
The soul has a form.
Yeah, for that.
Yeah, there are so many references. Just as I mentioned, aprakrito dehe kare Krishna Rishivan. Aprakrita means transcendental. This is prakrita, material. Aprakrita, transcendental. Ishvaraha parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. Vigraha, the form. But that form is Satchidananda, transcendental.
This is in relation to Krishna, like.
Yeah. Right. I mean, this is in relation to Krishna. But Jiva also is Chinmaya. Right? Jiva also is Satchidananda. But he is a relative Satchidananda. Krishna is the absolute Satchidananda. That means for a Jiva to become Satchidananda, he has to become connected to Krishna. And how does he become connected to Krishna? By rendering devotional service to Krishna. Now, how does one render devotional service? Can you render some service unless you have a form? So what kind of form is that? That form is also Satchidananda. Yes?
Maharaj, I'd like to ask one question. I know that is not polite to ask, but still I like to know that
Give her the mic.
how can we believe that Murti is God, not just a stone statue?
Yeah. You see, how do you believe that your picture of your great grandfather is your great grandfather? Tell me. Did you see your great grandfather? Do you have a picture? Did you see a picture of your great grandfather?
Yes.
You did. But did you see him?
Not
You did not. Then how do you believe that he is your great grandfather?
because I talked with him when he.
No, because your grandmother told you that this is your great grandfather. Right? Because somebody told you, and that person is reliable, you believe him. When your grandfather says that this is your great grandfather, is there any reason for you not to believe that? So, similarly, in our line, the saintly personalities, our acharyas, our previous acharyas, they have established the identity of Krishna. They have told us. That's how we believe that. Our Guru said that this is Krishna. Right? That's why we believe. And our Guru doesn't have any reason to bluff me. Right? Similarly, his Guru told him that this is the form of Krishna. And then ultimately you go to the scriptures. You know how this form came? That, as you said, Murti, we are worshipping. You know, how did this Murti come? Where from it came? Krishna's great grandson is Vajra. Bajran now actually establish Krishna's deities. The original deities of Krishna, according to his original form, appeared. Okay. And then, did you read Bhagavad Gita? Did you read? Or do you know that there is a book called Bhagavad Gita? You do. You accept that. Who spoke Bhagavad Gita? Did somebody speak or somebody just wrote it from his mental concoction? Yeah, because you didn't do any research. So if you make a research, you'll find out.
Actually, Prabhu, my father is Krishna devotee. He is very strict and I'm both from Brahmin family, but I don't feel that I read any Bhagavad Gita. I follow, I chanting, but I don't feel that I read Bhagavad Gita like that. Why Maharaj?
I should ask you. Tell me why. Tell me why not.
My father forced me to read and
Yeah.
follow that, but my sister is Christian and I like
Where do you live?
I live in Nepal.
You live in Nepal. Okay. So, okay. But now that you're here. Okay. So you associate with the devotees and speak to them, and it'll happen. Like, say for example, when you were a little baby, you didn't want to eat, right? Your mother had to force you to eat, right? But then you got the taste of the food. And when you got the taste of the food, then does your mother have to force you? Huh? Did you fast yesterday for Ekadasi? Are you feeling hungry? Does somebody have to force you to eat now? Or you're going to eat right away on your own?
I eat myself.
You eat yourself. Similarly, initially you may not have the taste of Bhagavad Gita because you don't know what is there. You don't know what purpose it serves. But when you practice it, like somebody has to force you. And by doing that, you get the taste. And after you get the taste, then you will automatically want to have it yourself.
Yes, Prabhu, but I like to go more church more than temple. I don't know why. I like to go temple, but I don't feel anything when I chanting this 16 round. I don't feel anything. And when I go, but I like to go church more. I don't know why.
Go to church.
Yes.
Then go there. And then see what you find there. If you like to go to the church, go ahead, do it. But the difference is, when you go to the church, you would not understand why, nobody will tell you why you have to go to the church. But when you come to a temple, then we will tell you why you have to come to a temple. That's the difference. Right? They say that you go to the church to pray to God, but they don't give any information who is God. But when you come here, we tell you this is God. That's the difference of you're praying in the church and praying in the temple. Okay? But pray. When you're hungry, eat. Okay. You live in Ujjain. You live here in Ujjain.
No problem. I can visit.
She's my wife.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. So you have a very good teacher. Just listen to him. Yeah, listen to his instruction.
Maharaj, but
Maybe he is not being strong enough with you.
my Prabhu never forced me to come temple and My Prabhu say whatever you like.
Okay, we'll force him to bring you. Okay. You're happy here?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm very happy.
Very good. And still there are some churches here also. Thank you, but come to your temple. Okay.
Sure.
Hare Krishna. Yes?
Talking about that debate is where debate is on about Yukta Vairagya. So, of course, we know that in today's time we cannot do without technology and gadgets. Like we cannot practically work without that, and we have to deal with the society. But many a times, it is seen in general that devotees are too much into technology and they become more focused. I mean, the focus changes. One thing is that, and another thing is because this India, so people in general, they identify, these are like modern sadhus or something like that. I mean, so that kind of gives them a negative kind of feeling, and which cuts them away from us, from coming to a temple, as against traditional temples and traditional sadhus. So where do we draw that line? That's a very big.
That's why you have to preach. Preaching means making them understand. And the preaching has two aspects. One is directly talking to them, and other is setting the example through our behavior. When they see that you are using your computer for only Krishna conscious activities, then they will understand. Right? But if they see that we are using our computer to watch movies, then they will see what's the matter. So our activity should justify our action, our principle. That this is Yukta Vairagya. We are doing it for Krishna, not for any other purpose. Yeah.
Prabhupada, I have a question on the size of the soul. You mentioned that it's minute particle, when it develops its body. So that 1/10,000 part dimension, does it only applicable to the material nature of the soul?
Yeah, when the soul is in a dormant state, right? It's a spiritual spark. Like it is spiritual, that's why you cannot measure it by any material means. How large is 1/10,000 part of the tip of the hair? Is any instrument that can measure that? No. So that means by material means you cannot measure the spirit soul. It is a spiritual dimension. And it develops spiritually through devotional service. Now it's in a dormant stage, that's why it is not really, it doesn't have the shape. But by being engaged in service, it will develop the shape. According to our service, that is why, the spontaneity comes, where our natural propensity will blossom. Because that is the spiritual identity, and that accordingly the spiritual body will develop. Okay. How are you? When did you come? So everything, they picked you up in time? Hare Krishna, Mr. Somani, how are you?
So my question is in relation to the devotee's question. Sometimes we say that when we go to the spiritual world, we get a spiritual body. So now the soul itself is spiritual. So it is getting a spiritual body, it gets its own, whatever original form is, as such. No further change in this form.
Yeah, right. And that's the point I made, that form, the spiritual body, will develop according to one's service. And that, you see, initially we are engaged in devotional service and practice. We are practicing. But then we will develop an attitude of spontaneity, spontaneous devotional self. Like we'll spontaneously would like to do something, right? Like now we are putting pressure. We are forcing ourselves to do something for Krishna. But a time will come when we'll automatically want to do something for Krishna. And accordingly our spiritual body will take its shape. The form will come accordingly, yeah. Yes, Murari.
Prabhupada, you said that when we are born, then we are deriving pleasure through senses. One derives pleasure through senses. But at atmaram stage, one derives pleasure through the soul. Who is this one? Who is this one who is deriving pleasure through soul?
The soul itself.
The soul itself.
When you say one or I, or the self, is the soul. That is our real identity. But the mistaken identity is the body. Now we forgot the soul. We are thinking that this body is me. But when our spiritual identity will awaken, then we will become situated in our soul. Right? Okay, so I'll stop now. Thank you very much. Okay, one question. What is the difference between Brahmabhuta stage and Atmaram stage? Well, it's similar. Sanandan? Okay. Brahmabhuta stage and Atmaram stage is the same, but Atmaram stage, you see, from Brahmabhuta stage it comes to the pure devotional stage. So at that time also it remains Atmaram, but it may not be Brahmabhuta. You get the point? At Brahmabhuta stage also one is deriving joy from the self. And in devotional service also one is deriving joy from Atma, self. So both the stages are Atmaram stage. Alright? But Brahmabhuta stage may not, is one stage of Atmaram, one aspect of Atmaram stage. And generally Atmaram indicates this Brahmabhuta stage. But when one becomes engaged in devotional service, then he is deriving the joy not exactly from the self, but from the service that he is rendering. You get the thing? Generally, Atmaram stage, in that Atmaram stage or Brahmabhuta stage, one is deriving the pleasure through meditating upon the Lord. Right? But in Atmaram stage, one is engaged in serving the Lord. Or rather, in devotional stage, one is engaged in serving the Lord. But when it comes to deriving the joy from Atma, both are actually deriving joy from Atma. Brahmabhuta stage and also pure devotional stage. Okay?
Alright. Sometimes we need to talk to girls and we need to associate them for academic reasons.
Talk to who?
Girls, classmates.
Girls.
Oh, girls. Okay.
So, with what attitude we should approach them?
Yes. Think that she is your mother. Your mother or your sister. Right? Preferably mother. That's what the scripture says. Matrivat paradarishu. Other ladies other than one's wife should be seen as the mother. Krishna.
When one engages his senses in when one engages his senses in serving Lord, his spiritual body manifests. So when we see pure devotees also, like we see the material body, so their body is spiritual or
Very good. Very good point. You see, the body, the material body, is a gift of nature. Mother Nature has given this body. and this, the gross body, and then we have a subtle body. The subtle body is the result of our karma, past karma, and the modes of material nature. So accordingly, the subtle body is made, consisting of mind, intelligence, and false ego. Now, the gross body dies, but the subtle body doesn't die. The subtle body can only be transformed. What is the subtle body composed of? Mind, intelligence, and false ego. So what did Krishna say? What to do with the mind? Very good. So when you think of Krishna all the time, then is the mind material or spiritual? So the mind which was material, now it's transformed into spiritual. Then Krishna is telling in Bhagavad Gita, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam jena mam upajantite. When one is engaged constantly in serving Krishna, then Krishna says that he gives him buddhi yoga. Buddhi, what is buddhi? In English, intelligence. So buddhi becoming buddhi yoga, right? Spiritualized. Intelligence is spiritualized in buddhi yoga or devotional service. And when one is engaged in serving Krishna in this way, what happens to him? Does he have a false ego? The false ego is transformed as the servant of Krishna. When one becomes a servant of Krishna, does he have a false ego or wrong concept of his identity? No. So in this way, mind, intelligence, and false ego is spiritualized. So he has a gross body made of five elements, gross elements, but inside he doesn't have a subtle body. What he has is a pure spirit soul, pure spiritual identity. That stage is called Jivan Mukta stage or Sarup Siddhi. He is in his body, but he is not entangled in the material nature anymore. Jivan Mukta. Iha jasya Hare dasya karmana manasa gira nikhilasyapi avasthasu Jivan Mukta sauchyate. That stage is a Jivan Mukta stage, liberated stage. Meaning, inside the gross body there is a pure spirit soul. Or this stage is called Sarup Siddhi. Spiritually he has achieved his perfection. All he is dwelling in his material body. Now, about this Prabhupada is giving the example of iron and fire. When iron is in contact with fire, what happens to the iron? Iron becomes red hot. When it becomes red hot, is it iron or fire? It's fire. So, although it is an apparently material body, but it is spiritualized. It is spiritualized this way. So that stage, his body, although that is the pure devotee. A pure devotee's body is not material. It is spiritualized. It is a spiritual body. Okay. So thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande Hari.